All right, welcome back to another Deal in the Cards Q&A episode. This is number 12. We love doing these. If you want to get your question in here, just make sure to tweet at us, respond to this, comment to our other videos. We would love to answer your questions. But let's just get right into it here. So the first question for this week says, we had the nucleus for a playoff team several times, but we never made the extra trade that got us there. Why will it be different now? I want to push back against this first. I believe the Cardinals have made the extra trade before. Maybe not the trade fans wanted them to make, but they've definitely made the extra trade to push themselves over the edge. Jordan Montgomery was that extra trade in 2022. He actually was the best pitcher on that roster, aside from like Adam Wainwright in 2022. But Jordan Montgomery, clearly the best pitcher in the 2023 team. I think they made the extra trade right there. I would point to even Jose Quintana that year was the Cardinals making a really good move, really smart. And then at other times, like the Cardinals had a fine team entering 2019, but it was the addition of Paul Goldschmidt that put that team over the top. I don't think it would have been unreasonable to say that team was better than the 2017 and 18 teams that were a little lacking. And Paul Goldschmidt made them a really good team. And that team, we don't know if they should have gone there, but they ended up in the NLCS. Ozuna is another similar thing. Obviously, that move didn't mature super well, but that was the Cardinals making the trade they needed to make. And then if you go farther back, obviously big additions like Matt Holliday come to mind. So they've done that before. But I understand what you're saying too, where it's like, man, had they added Juan Soto in 2022, right? Like huge what if, maybe it wouldn't have happened. Maybe Dylan Carlson wasn't even the centerpiece of the package. But stuff like that, where it's like, will they ever make that Dodgers level move? Maybe. Chaim Bloom has a different leadership style than John Mozeliak. We're already seeing it come into effect. Apparently, he's been ruthlessly purging parts of the organization, which is awesome. That's what needs to happen. But then again, if you look at his time in Boston, I'm not sure. He did trade Mookie Betts away. So he actually allowed the Dodgers to make one of those, franchise altering moves. Granted, he had no leverage and the owner put him in a really bad position. But I'm just not sure if it will be different, if the Cardinals will do that. But I think they'll be in a better position where they don't have to make those moves because they'll be able to have talent from within because Chaim Bloom is a developmental savant, which would be really, really nice. If you look at the top prospects right now, the Red Sox haven't drafted at the very top, yet Chaim Bloom has produced incredible prospects through the draft, through international signings. His development system is just unbelievable. Roman Anthony is the number one prospect in baseball. That has Chaim Bloom's fingerprints all over it. What sort of player package would you like to see or expect to come back in a deal for Helsley or any of the other guys? I lean toward keeping Contreras and Gray. Okay, so I think this is really hard. Ryan Helsley has a lot of value because he is one of the best three closers in all of baseball. We can establish that. He's one of the best relief pitchers in the league. I would say he has a ton of value. He's not getting paid a ton of money. The problem is there's only 1 year of control. So if the Cardinals were to sign him to like some team-friendly extension and then trade him, sure, you could get something even better. I just don't see him taking that deal. I think he tests free agency. I think he knows he's going to get a lot of money as a free agent because he's really freaking good. They do need to trade him, though. He's not going to provide value on a team as a closer if the Cardinals aren't good. And he's not going to be around in 2026. So I think the package that I've thought makes the most sense is moving him to the Orioles and getting one of their young bats back. I can't see them trading Colton Cowser. Jackson Holliday is obviously untouchable. Gunnar Henderson is untouchable. I wouldn't even throw those names out there. But maybe like you could build a package and acquire like a Heston Kjerstad or some MLB ready bat. I think that's what the Cardinals need to get back for Helsley. They need to get back an MLB ready, intriguing bat with real upside who it's like, yeah, this guy's good. We can actually make something happen with this guy. For Contreras, I think you get a lot back for Contreras too. That's a really team-friendly contract for a guy who potentially is a top 15 to top 25 hitter in the league when healthy. He might not catch much longer, but I think that's okay. I think you can get back something really good for Contreras, maybe some pitching prospects, maybe a top 100 prospect. I don't know what you get back for Gray without paying some of the money down. You could potentially package Gray and Helsley and send them both to Baltimore. I've thought about that idea. But yeah, I think that you'll get something really good for Helsley, like a giant package. I think you'll get something pretty good for Contreras. And I think if you pay down or put Gray with one of them, you get something really good for Gray. So the Cardinals can get a lot back this offseason. It could be really, really great. And they could get a lot of MLB ready talent too. The thing that we're not thinking about, like the Cardinals could be decent next year, and they could be decent by subtracting and then adding. So they could subtract this talent, this veteran talent, and they could add MLB ready talent right now. Maybe it's not super proven, but they could add guys with a chance to contribute right away. Look what the Cubs did last year. They added Michael Busch by subtracting. And by doing that, look what they did at the deadline. They subtracted, they traded some guys away and added Isaac Paredes. That's a really interesting blueprint that the Cardinals should probably follow. The only thing that matters is maximizing value. And so if the Cardinals feel like they got more back than they gave away, I think it's a good trade now. So that's what I want to see them do. Subtract and then add capable major league ready talent so that maybe you have a guy like Michael Busch who breaks out and is one of the best hitters on your team. The Cardinals really could have used a guy like that this season. Do you really see this team pretty much running it all back with the exception of Goldie? Plus, if they were to trade Helsley, wouldn't Tink Hence make a great closer? No, I don't see them running it back because I think they're going to trade a lot of people this offseason. I think they're going to go into retool, rebuild, whatever word you want to use to describe it mode. I think they're going to trade Sonny Gray. I think they're going to trade Ryan Helsley. I think they're going to trade Wilson Contreras. I think they should trade Eric Fetty. I think they should try to trade Nolan Arenado. And if you can get all this off the books, that's a huge difference. I mean, maybe they're running it all back because it's mostly internal options. So if that doesn't excite you because they're not bringing guys from outside, I get it. I think that's a big offseason. I don't think they're just running it back. Also, Goldie is as good as gone. If they do trade Helsley, Tink Hence is a closer is the second part of this question. I don't know. I think you want to get Tink Hence's full value, which is him as a starter. If Tink Hence can start, he has one of the best arsenals in all of minor league baseball. So if he's starting, it's awesome. He's got ace stuff. The problem is durability, endurance. Those are real questions with Tink Hence. I think you let him ride it out for yet another season in the minors. He hasn't even pitched at AAA really yet. So I think you let Tink Hence cook at Memphis next year. And if it's really good, you bring him up. I don't want to see them pigeonhole him into a bullpen spot. I really, really don't. They did it with Alex Reyes. I don't know if it hurt his development or not. There were a lot of other things that went on. He had a substance suspension. He had a ton of injuries. But I just don't want to see the Cardinals treat their top pitching prospects like that. They missed out on a year or more of Andre Palante starting because they forced him into a reliever role. Now we're finally seeing what it's like when you get to stretch him out again. We have no idea what Helsley could have been as a starter because they put him into a relief role. He started in the minors. We have no idea what Jordan Hicks could have been had he had a full chance to build up. The Cardinals, they miss on pitching prospects because they force them into these roles. Let's not do that with Tink Hence. All right. Can we start to add Lane Thomas to the list as one of those guys the Cardinals gave up for nothing? Well, technically, yeah, the Cardinals did give him up for nothing. But there's a lot of guys they've given up for nothing that haven't panned out. I see what you're saying here, though. Can we add him to the list as one of those? Oh, my gosh, I can't believe he got away too. No. I think for the same reason that you can't add Adolis Garcia to that list. Lane Thomas and Adolis Garcia were not major league level players when they were with the Cardinals. Maybe Lane Thomas was. He had pretty good numbers in a small stint in 2019. And then he broke his wrist, I believe. But Adolis Garcia, absolutely not. Adolis Garcia was terrible with the Cardinals. If anybody remembers, he literally lost them a huge game by slipping on the base paths in Milwaukee. It was horrible. In 2021, I want to say. Whatever year they traded him. Whatever the case, like those guys had no time to develop with the Cardinals. The roles were never going to appear. If you run it back and you think, okay, where would Lane Thomas have played in 2021? He wasn't a starter. They had Tyler O'Neill. By 2022, that team had Lars Nootbaar, who clearly had figured something out, and I still believe is a much better player than Lane Thomas or Adolis Garcia for that matter. They had other guys on the team that they were more interested in giving opportunities to. They weren't going to put Lane Thomas in center. The Nationals don't play him in center. And so he was able to go to Washington and get 500 at bats when the Cardinals probably would have given him like 150 or he would have been up and down between Memphis and St. Louis. He just was never going to get that opportunity to develop. Now, it's cool that he developed into a solid player, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. He's got an 85 OPS plus in the regular season after the trade with Cleveland. Like, he's a very close to replacement level player. Now, he had a huge postseason moment. That's awesome. I like Lane Thomas. I'm rooting for Lane Thomas. I love Cleveland and I want to see him win. But I don't think you can add him to the list of guys like Randy Arozarena, where they became like really good players. Arozarena became a really good player, and the Cardinals have not gotten their fair share from Liberatore. So that's fair. Sandy Alcantara and Zach Gallen became legitimate stars. That sucks. Marcell Ozuna did nothing for the Cards and then went to Atlanta and damn near won a Triple Crown. So there are guys that the Cardinals have traded away or let leave for nothing. Lane Thomas is not on that list yet. And I think if Lane Thomas is an all-star, a 2 or 3 time all-star, like, sure. And he had one really good season with the Nationals in 2023. But I don't even know where he ever would have gotten opportunities with the Cardinals. Sandy Alcantara and Zach Gallen certainly would have. So, yeah, that's really tough. What happened to Alec Burleson? Did pitchers figure him out? Was fatigue a factor for the second-year player? Any hope he can improve versus lefties? All right, there are 4 questions here. What happened to Alec Burleson? The long story short, he was really strong. Well, he was kind of okay at the beginning of the year, caught fire in early summer, and then cooled off in the second half. Did pitchers figure him out? Maybe. I don't think so. I think if you're good, you're good. And if you're struggling, you struggle. I don't know if pitchers really figured him out. I think fatigue was absolutely a factor, though. That's more plate appearances than he's ever logged in his professional career. He played more defense than he's been expected to play in the past. And he was a full-time role. Alec Burleson was hitting second in the Cardinals lineup for months this year. Is that an indictment on them? Kind of. It's not an indictment on him, though. He was awesome. He did a great job. He provided a lot of consistent offense and ended up being a league average offensive player on a team that needed a lot more of those guys. Any hope he can improve versus lefties? So I think this is also part of what happened with him. The Cardinals let him play against lefties a lot more often than they should have. And he is terrible against lefties. I'm talking like 35 OPS plus against lefties, like 70% below league average almost. It's abysmal. He cannot hit against lefties, and that's fine. He needs to be platooned. But I don't know. I don't see a ton of hope. Like, he can improving against lefties. The bar is so low that I'm sure he will as he matures as a hitter. Like, if he could just become a 70 OPS plus guy against lefties, which is still really bad, that'd be a huge improvement, but it still wouldn't be playable. I do not think he will be a league average hitter against lefties. I just don't see it happening. I hope he is. I hope he proves me wrong. I like Alec Burleson. And I think one of the cool things about him is that he's proved a lot of people wrong already in his short major league career. Early on this season, it was like, oh my gosh, is Alec Burleson our best young bat? All these guys ahead of him, Gorman, Walker, Donovan still clears. Donovan's awesome. Nootbaar, this whole crop of hitters. Win was awesome this year too. But this whole crop of hitters with way more pedigree, and it's like Burleson's at the top of the leaderboard and everything. He cooled down. Donovan, Nootbaar, Win, turned it on and played well. But I mean, Burleson had a way better year than Gorman or Walker. Like, there were no positives from their years, and there were a ton of things to build on with Burleson. So I'm really excited about what he could be moving forward. But I do not think he'll be a full-time player just because of the lefties issue. Platoon him with Baker. Baker is amazing against lefties. 184 WRC plus. All right. Last question of the week. If we trade away Helsley, Arenado, and Contreras, could we go with Gorman at first versus righties and Baker at first versus lefties? Go with Scott in center, Newton right, and platoon Burley and Walker in left and DH. Then go with Donovan at third, Win at short, Sajazi at second, and have Herrera starting catcher with Pies back. Okay. I like most of this. Trading away Helsley doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of the prompt. Okay, so let's break down the infield first. If Arenado and Contreras go, yeah, Herrera becomes your full-time starting catcher. Pies is backup. That's great. The third baseman probably becomes Donovan. I don't know why people think Gorman would suddenly be a great third baseman. He hasn't played it in years and isn't a good second baseman right now. So yeah, Donovan at third, Win at short. Yeah, I love giving Sajazi some run at second, although I think the Cardinals will probably still run it back with Gorman there. But yeah, they could give Sajazi some run. I just don't know how ready he is. I don't know how big of a contributor he's going to be. The nice thing is it's not going to be this year, but 2026, we're going to be talking about JJ Weatherholt sliding in somewhere here, and second base would be a great long-term home for him. With Gorman at first, I don't think so. I think I'd much rather platoon Burley at first, run Gorman at second, and see what you can get out of Sajazi. He's probably not going to play a corner outfield very well, but I think he's pretty athletic. I think he's good defensively. And you could platoon Gorman and Sajazi, which I would rather do than Gorman and Baker. Then let Burley platoon with Baker at first, Gorman and Sajazi platoon at second, and then it's Newton right, Scott in center, Walker in left. Uh, there are real questions here, though, as well. You're going to have Siani to mix in occasionally as a fourth outfielder, who, by the way, absolutely snubbed. Probably one of the worst Gold Glove snubs of the year. And Juan Soto is a finalist. Are you kidding me? -4 outs above average. Whereas Siani was 16 in way less innings. It's a counting stat, and he was in the 99th percentile with barely enough innings to qualify. That is criminal. One of the best defensive outfielders, if not in the game in the last 10 years. He's amazing. But yeah, I think you could rock with this. So final answer, Herrera's your catcher. Pius is your backup catcher. Instead of Gorman and Baker at first, I would go Baker and Burley at first. I think they platoon better off of each other as well. Gorman and Sajazi splitting time at second, with Sajazi mixing in at DH as well. And Gorman, if he's hot, you never want to miss a Gorman hot streak. And then when it's short, Donnie at third. Scott, Newt, Walker are your starting outfield, with Siani mixing in as a fourth. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's Q&A. Thank you so much for your questions. And remember, if you have a question you want answered, if there's anything really on your mind, preferably keep it baseball related, but send that to us any way you know how, right? So that's replying to us on Twitter. You can tweet at us. You can reply to any of our posts on Dealing the Cards. We've got stuff on there all the time. We've got a really, really good feed of content. And then if you want to reply to this video, right down there in the comments, make sure to like, subscribe, share, show your friends. We love doing this stuff, and you guys help us do it. All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you next week.